Gwyn was not the flame's savior, he was its hollow echo. A lone figure stands in the kiln of the first flame. Soul the moonlight-starved greatsword's glow flickers as ash falls. A lone figure stands in the kiln of the first flame. Soul the moonlight-starved. Every hand that wields it carries his unspoken curse, would unmake what he could not keep alive. The blade that fed the first flame now gnaws at its core. Gwyn's trust was a shroud, for his Firthai's sword did not sustain the flame, it starved it. Each strike mimicked devotion, each parry buried guilt. The secret war rages in every soul who grasps its hilt, a king's last breath, a flame's slow choke. The curse is not in the steel, it is in the light, what begins as salvation ends as surrender. The age of fire's twilight is etched in the very it sought to keep burning. Note, is an error, should be light to comply with Latin script rule. Correction, the blade that fed the first flame now gnaws at its core. Gwyn's trust was a shroud, for his Firthai's sword did not sustain the flame, it starved it. Each strike mimicked devotion, each parry buried guilt. The secret war rages in every soul who grasps its hilt, a king's last breath, a flame's slow choke. The curse is not in the steel, it is in the light, what begins as salvation ends as surrender. The age of fire's twilight is etched in the very light it sought to keep burning. The sword's lunar etchings are not symbols of peace, they are the fingerprints of a ghost. Gwyn's firstborn, whose face the ages have forgotten, left their mark in the blade's spine. When the king linked his soul to the kiln, he did not merely sacrifice his body. He shattered the bond between father and child, forging a weapon that glows with the light it was made to kill. Every hand that lifts the Moonlight Greatsword grasps a fracture in time. It is no relic of victory. It is the echo of a king's final gasp, a blade born of love and murder. The fire it was made to save, it waits only to watch itself burn. The Moonlight Greatsword does not heal, it does not protect, it carves a covenant between wielder and wrought. To grasp its hilt is to feel the first flame's breath faint, failing, hungry. In Lordran, knights swung it as a purge, thinking to sever the undead curse. Instead, their strikes fed the hollowing. Each cut a chain, each chain unraveled a soul. The blade's glow was not Gwyn's triumph, but his confession, a mirror to a king who knew his fire was a shroud, not a salvation. Its light is a dirge, the longer it burns in a hand, the faster that hand decays. Strength drawn from it is a loan against the future interest paid in flesh, in will. Gwyn forged it in his twilight when the flame had already begun to wither, the crescent etchings, not symbols of hope. They trace the hollow crescent in his own heart, the void left by his dying gift. What weapon could bind a god's final contradiction? This one. The Moonlight Greatsword is no relic of fire's age, it is the scar tissue where that age festers. It let Gwyn fight the dark on his own terms, delaying the end by becoming part of it. Every swing whispers a truth the age of fire could not bear, that preservation is a form of erosion. The blade's curse is inheritance. It passes not as a blessing, but as a burden Gwyn could not bear alone. A hollow king's last act was not to save the flame. It was to make his champions suffer the weight of his mistake. To wield it is to hold a piece of a promise that could not be kept. The fire it was made to save, it waits only to watch itself burn. The Moonlight Greatsword did not choose its bearers, they were chosen to bear its weight. Gwyn, the first flame's last lord, wielded it in his twilight years, a blade forged to gild decay with false light. To his adopted daughter Gwendolyn, he gave it next moonborn, sun-thirsting task to mend the rift between waning radiance and the cold ascendancy of stars. She failed. The sword passed to Guinevere, whose hand struck the fatal accord, trading Gwyn's dying fire for a hollow union of light and shadow. Her betrayal did not unmake the age, it sanctified the curse. In the lands between, the blade's echo lingers. The first flame's last embers clung to its edge, not as kindling but as prisoner. Now even that is ash. The sword's glow never saved what it touched, it only delayed the end's arrival. Gwyn's gift was a reckoning wrapped in silver. Each heir who grasped it grasped the certainty of undoing. The moon it mirrors does not guide, it mourns, a light borrowed from a debt unpaid. What fire could survive such a blade? What legacy but a shadow of its giver's regret? The greatsword's glow is not the promise of ageless flame, it is the harbinger of the eclipse. Gwyn's final act was not to preserve the first flame. He knew its end was written in the very light he sought to prolong. The sword's true name is not Moonlight. It is the weight of waning. And every hand that raised it raised the hammer that would shatter what it sought to save. This blade is no relic of light, but a requiem etched in steel. Every swing whispers the first flame's obit. Its glow is a dirge, not a beacon. Gwyn's gift was a chain, to bear it is to hasten the age's end. The cycle is not broken. It is being buried. The Moonlight Greatsword does not fade, it lingers. Across Lordran, the lands between, the painted world its edge glints where Gwyn's will once burned. A blade meant to anoint heirs, it became a shackle. Gwyn's flame was not stolen, it was starved. His pact with the first flame was a lie, a borrowed light, a hollow crown. The sword's return is no relic. It is a wound reopened. Gwyn's line was never his to pass on. Gwendolyn's theft was but the first fracture. The true betrayal was Gwyn's own. He forged the sword to bind his blood to a fire that could not be fed. Its radiance was never his. It was the flame's, borrowed and bound. Now it repeats a ghost in the hands of those who seek to reignite what was never theirs. Each wielder becomes a proxy in a war unseen, a war the flame itself wages against its keepers. The first flame's end is etched into the sword's spine. Every strike with its light hastens the hollowing. Gwyn's gift was a mirror. It reflects not the glory of fire, but its consumption. The greatsword's curse is clarity. It reveals the truth. No lord of cinders can unseathe. Age of fire was never a beginning. It was a delay in the slow unmaking of all things. The blade's persistence is not hope, it is testimony. A silent elegy for a god who mistook his torch for a star. Its light does not guide, it mourns. And in its glow the cycle turns, not to renewal, to the quiet extinction of a flame that was never meant to last. The Moonlight Greatsword rests in the painted world's hollowed heart. Its light no longer pierces the gloom. Only a faint silver stain remains where flame once burned. What did Gwyn forge? A key, a curse. The blade's edge holds the weight of an age's last breath. It was his right hand, it was his shackle. The cycle he could not complete now gnaws at its hilt. Ashes fall where fire should rise. The sword waits. Not for a hero, for a fool, one who will grasp its handle and unravel what Gwyn could not. Does the first flame burn eternally, or was it always a clockwork star, ticking toward its own unmaking? The painted world peels like old paint. Its colors bleed into gray. The sword's glow dims with it. Will the next hand to wield it end the cycle, or become its next pawn? Gwyn's final gift is a riddle wrapped in steel, and the answer festers in the dark. The Moonlight Greatsword is no relic of triumph. It is a wound passed through ages, a blade that gleams with the ash of what it sought to preserve. Gwyn's final gift was not a flame, it was a shadow, a promise of light that became a dirge. Across kingdoms and kings it returns, a silent judge of all who clutch at legacies not their own. To wield it is to grasp at a hollow god's last breath. Gwyn's radiance was never endless. His flame burned not from divinity, but from theft, each spark borrowed from time's slow theft. The sword's edge carries that debt. It cuts not enemies, but the illusion of permanence. Every swing whispers, asterisk, even the sacred rots, asterisk. The cycles are not a flaw, they are the truth. The greatsword's cold light does not unmake the first flame, it reveals its lie. A flame that needs a sword to survive is no flame at all. Gwyn's hollowing was inevitable. His blade, his blessing, his betrayal, all threads in the same unraveling. What remains then but to let the steel speak? Let the cycles turn, let the dark take what the light could not keep. The Moonlight Greatsword is no answer. It is the question and the answer and the silence after. What other relics of Gwyn's fall await discovery? The lands between hold fragments of the Age of Fire's legacy. The sunlight sword gleams yet its blade cuts both light and lineage. Guinevere's bloodline bears a curse older than the flame. What truths lie buried in its radiance? Next week we uncover the price